hung between him and Bryce, smiling out at him. He gestured, and the image started to cycle through a short recording of the girl laughing and talking to camera. He didn't have to unmute her to hear the soft tones of her voice in his head. "Look at her, Bryce." Kemp shook his head. "You went to Ma Holding's place. You saw all the pics she had of Sophie. They were her way of coping, of keeping her only daughter alive and with her. And she trusted me to find her killer. As I said, you gave her hope. And there are 54 others, and their families and loved ones who haven't been able to move on. You know something? Go on. Days like today, I feel like retiring." Bryce smiled. "A little way to go yet, Gordon. Or requesting a transfer. Not that anywhere else would have me. Surely, with all your experience, you know me, Ed. I don't fit anywhere else, and I can't take authority. Too bullshit by half, Song's own words." Which wasn't the whole truth. Even Ed Bryce, who Kemp considered his best friend, didn't know why he'd been put out to pasture in the morgue after 20 years in homicide. "I called you about something else, other than Ma Holding," Bryce said. "More bad news? It's been a while since I had Martin look over your imp." Kemp didn't trust his superiors. He wouldn't have been surprised if Commander Song turned out to be a Chinese mole, and his mistrust extended to the content of his annual implant upgrades. He didn't like the idea that every year Song had his techs download who knew what into his running system. He'd once grumbled about this to Bryce over a beer, and the lawyer had said he knew just the man to run a few tests on Kemp's implant and ensure it was clean. Bryce knew a lot of people from every walk of life, and one of them was Martin Kalsa, a cyber wizard whose definition of legality was elastic. The upshot was that after every department upgrade, Martin scanned Kemp's implant for spyware and whatever other nasties Song's team might have planted. Now Kemp waved. "No need. Still running on the same program as last year. I'll be in touch when they call me in for an upgrade, okay?" "In the meantime," Bryce said, "let's meet. You look like you could use a drink." "I'm busy today, but maybe tomorrow." "Tomorrow it is, then." They chatted for another 5 minutes before Bryce was called away and cut the connection. Kemp reinstated the gallery of the dead, pushed it back to the darkened walls, and once again turned to stare out at what passed for a view. A month ago, he'd gone to see Ma Holding in her bedsit by Hackney Lakes to give her what he euphemistically called a progress report. He visited her every once in a while, like a dutiful son, although it became harder on each occasion. This time he'd even considered lying about a new lead, anything to stoke her hope, particularly when her health was clearly failing. She gripped his hand and stared at him with her massive, yellowing eyes. "You'll find him for me, won't you, Gordon?" He'd prized her fingers from his and promised that he'd find Sophie's killer if it were the last thing he did. He willed himself to turn the seat, access the database, and go through the Holding case yet again. He knew that for the next few days he'd be fired up, until frustration at not getting anywhere overcame him and he took up the freshest case on file, leaving Sophie's murder unsolved and Ma Holding's hope to die with her. He looked up, seeing Danny in the doorway, leaning slantwise against the frame, and wondered how long she'd been there. "You look, if you don't mind my saying, as if you've slept all night in that seat." Her voice was home counties, primly correct. Anyone less like a DI he'd never met. She wore a dark trouser suit like a uniform, with its side-fastening tunic and high collar, and her jet hair was long and straight. She looked like a high-flying executive up for an interview with a pan-global consortium. "My saying," he mocked. She was 25 years his junior, and even though they shared the same rank, she was his superior in charge of this unit. When she was instated over him in the morgue, he'd come in for relentless flack from colleagues. Kemp had shrugged and told them, truthfully, that he couldn't give a damn. In fact, he was glad of the company, and Danny Bellini turned out to be a decent kid who didn't rub his nose in the